Are the airstrikes in Yemen working?
Well, when you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they going to continue? Yes.
This is my video update on this Friday, midday, January the 19th. Let's talk about some news, and let's start things off with Joe Biden. Joe Biden speaking to the media yesterday, and they asked the President of the United States, Yo, Joe, are the airstrikes in Yemen working? This is what a reporter asked Bidenopolis. And Biden said, well, when you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they gonna continue? Yes. Oh man. Ah, boy. I think we talked about this yesterday, didn't we? In my video update, that these strikes against Yemen, they have no real purpose, do they? No one really knows what these strikes are going to accomplish. But Biden says they're going to continue, even though the President of the United States has admitted that they are not working, something that all of us already knew. But it's interesting to hear it come from President Biden, isn't it? Isn't this the definition of Einstein's like something not working? I don't know if Einstein said this is the definition of stupid, or if it's just attributed to Einstein, but isn't the saying just doing something over and over again, doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting different results? You know what I mean? It's not working, but we're just going to continue to do it. There you go. So that was Biden the other day speaking to reporters. And Biden called a meeting of all the DC congressional White House leaders. He called them all to the White House, and he wanted to speak about funding for Project Ukraine. So Sullivan was there, and Schumer was there, and McConnell, and Speaker Johnson, Jeffries. They all went to the White House to try and figure out what to do with Project Ukraine and the border. How can they solve this impasse? And waiting to cross here. And Speaker Johnson, when the meeting was over and they spoke to the media, Johnson, he repeated what he has been saying for a while now, which is, look, we want a comprehensive solution to the border, or else there's going to be no $61 billion for Zelensky. Schumer and McConnell, they sounded a lot more upbeat, a lot more confident that a deal is going to happen. Here's what Schumer said. There was a broad agreement in the room that we had to do this in a bipartisan way. I am more optimistic than ever before that we come to an agreement. I put the chances a little bit greater than half now, and that's the first time I can say that. Schumer told reporters that there was a tremendous focus on Ukraine and an understanding that if we don't come to Ukraine's aid, that the consequences for America around the globe would be nothing short of devastating. So Schumer is putting the chances of a deal for $61 billion to Ukraine and the border. You can tell that Schumer's not so concerned about the border, but he's very concerned about Project Ukraine. he put the chances at better than half. He sounded a lot more upbeat, a lot more confident that a deal was going to be worked out. And I think a deal will be worked out. I understand that Johnson is standing firm on his position for dealing with the border, but I think the Biden White House, the uniparty, they are just going to agree to give whatever concessions they need to give for the border to Speaker Johnson in order to unlock the $61 billion for Project Ukraine. And it makes sense for the uniparty. You know, they got freaked out with Trump's huge win in Iowa. They were hoping that Haley would have a better showing, but Trump, he crushed it in Iowa, absolutely crushed it. I think this really freaked out the uniparty, and they're going to bite the bullet on the border because they can't have Project Ukraine collapsing during the 2024 election cycle. And that's what this is all about. This is not about Ukraine winning. This is about preventing Ukraine from collapsing. Because if they don't get the 61 billion or 50 billion or 40 billion, whatever amount, if they don't get some money to the Zelensky regime, then in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, it's over. Ukraine collapses. And I think that Sullivan, being a campaign guy, and the uniparty, freaked out by Trump's historic showing in Iowa, they're going to do whatever they need to do to keep Ukraine afloat. And to be honest, if they do solve some of the border issues, yeah, the globalists are not going to like it. The Democrats are not going to like it. But, you know, it is a headache for the Biden White House that kind of goes away. So there's not so much attention on the border anymore. They can cover it up, at least for the 2024 election year. So they can cover over the border. They can keep Ukraine afloat. And that's less ammo for Trump as we head into the thick of the election season. So that's why they're going to make a deal, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about this, and maybe no deal is made and no money is sent to Ukraine. But listening to Schumer's statement, and McConnell said the same things, I think they'll work something out. They will work something out, and they'll get the money to Project Ukraine. At the end of the day, they're paying themselves as well. So why wouldn't they want to get 50 or 60 billion to the Zelensky regime? 10% for the big guy, money for the military industrial complex, and money for the political class. So it's almost like they're sending money to themselves as well. So that's what's going on with funding for Project Ukraine. We'll see what will happen. The Biden White House, they want to wrap this up by mid-February because they also want to create the optics of the 2-year anniversary money to the Zelensky regime. We got the 60 billion to Ukraine. Ukraine is standing tall against Russia aggression. We're now going to steal 300 billion as long as it takes. 50% of Russia's military has been annihilated. We've helped Ukraine take back 50% of the territory, blah, 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 blah. You know, they have all of these nice scripts and narratives laid out for some big event to mark the 2-year anniversary of the special military operation in late February. So they want to wrap this all up by then because they want to go to Kiev, all these guys. Biden, Ursula, Schultz, Annalena, Blinken. They all want to go to Kiev and they all want to declare victory, right? This is what they live for. They live for these, these media optics, these information war victories. Meanwhile, Russia's winning a real war. They're going to sell the illusion of a victory in February. So they want to wrap this all up. They want to wrap this all up by then. Anyway, Lavrov, he was speaking yesterday in Moscow for the Foreign Ministry 2023 press conference, talking about everything that happened in 2023 connected to the Russian Foreign Ministry. I talked about this a bit in my video yesterday, but Lavrov, he said that all trust is gone with the collective West. All the trust is over. The West's hybrid aggression, which encompassed many areas, played a role in making us understand how to go on living, Lavrov said. If there had been any illusions left over from the 1990s, that the West would open its arms to embrace us and that democracy would unite us all, they have been completely dispelled. Completely dispelled, said Lavrov. Democracy to unite us all. What democracy? What democracy is the collective West going to use to unite everybody? Lavrov also said the West cannot be trusted. Even now, it wants only one thing: to live at the expense of others and to be more clever than others. Lavrov also mentioned Gonzalo yesterday as well. I don't believe he said Gonzalo's name, but he did say an American citizen, a journalist, reporting out of Kiev who had been killed by the Zelensky regime and who the United States just left in, reporting out of Kharkov, who the United States just left in Kharkov, just abandoned in Kharkov. So he mentioned Gonzalo as well, rest in peace. So that was pretty cool of Lavrov to bring up Gonzalo during this press event. Speaking of the collective West and how they can't be trusted, according to Lavrov, we have the UK Defence Minister, Mr. Grant Shapps. Grant Shapps. He went crazy yesterday during a speech that he gave. He went full World War III, Grant Shapps. He said that in 5 years, the UK is going to be at war with everybody, with everybody. Well, everybody that's not part of the Five Eyes, part of the collective West globalist architecture. He said that the UK should prepare for war in 5 years with Russia, of course, with China, with Iran, and with North Korea. Quote, in 5 years' time, we could be looking at multiple theaters of conflict, including Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. Ask yourself, looking at today's conflicts across the world, is it more likely that that number grows or reduces? I suspect we all know the answer. It's likely to grow. So 2024 must mark an inflection point. An interesting statement from the UK Defence Minister, basically saying that the countries that are opposing the UK and the collective West, they're going to grow. You're going to get more countries opposing the UK and the collective West, which means that those countries that are opposing the UK and the collective West, well, they must be doing something right because more countries are signing up to their side. But Grant Shapps, he is like, you know what? Doesn't matter. They're going to grow, yes, but we're going to fight them all. We're going to fight each and every one of them. Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Saudi Arabia, India, you name it, we're going to fight them. We're going to fight them all. Man, these guys, psychos, absolutely crazy stuff coming from the UK. Defense Minister, how is the UK going to fight all these guys when I was reading just this morning that the UK is going to be closing down one of their last steel manufacturing facilities? How exactly are they going to fight all of these countries when the UK is going to be, from what I read, the UK is going to be the only G20 country that is not going to be a producer of steel, that is not going to be manufacturing its own steel? How exactly is the UK defense minister going to pull off this massive war against Russia and China and Iran and North Korea? Man, these guys in Russia, what did they do yesterday to the UK? Well, it looks like Russia is going to be closing off the Barents Sea for UK fishermen. This is a huge deal, I think, because from what I read, something like 580,000 or 570,000 tons of fish is coming from the Barents Sea to the UK, and this is the cod that makes fish and chips and stuff like that, and they have an agreement, or they had an agreement. We'll see. But the Soviet Union, during the Cold War, they had an agreement with the UK that they'll allow fishermen to access the Barents Sea, and this agreement has held for 70 years. Not only the Barents Sea, but also the east of Cape Kaninos as well. This has lasted for 70 years. UK fisheries, according to UK fisheries data, a whopping 566,784 tons of cod was scooped in the Barents Sea just last year. But now Vladimir Putin is said to have declared a fishing war on the UK, with his government backing draft legislation that would see Russia pull out of the 1956 agreement and ban Britain from scooping its revered supply of cod and haddock. And so they're upset. They're upset. I'm reading this from the Daily Mail, by the way, Daily Mail UK. They're upset that Vladimir Putin dares to do such a thing. How dare you end this agreement from 1956, huh? Just because the UK has placed 10,000 sanctions on Russia, has sent weapons to Ukraine, has called for the destruction and balkanization of Russia, has pretty much declared war on Russia without actually declaring war, but they're using the Ukraine proxy to wage war against Russia. How dare Russia decide to break this 1956 fishing agreement? Why would Putin do such a thing? What has the UK done to Russia for Putin to do such a thing? Oh man, the way Russia operates is pretty impressive, I have to admit. They wait. They're patient, and they pick their spots. And that's what they're doing here. So I imagine once Putin signs this decree, and I think that's all that's left, is this has to just be approved by Parliament, rubber stamped by Parliament, signed by Putin, and that's it. I imagine this is going to, unfortunately, this is going to do a lot of harm to the UK fishing industry, and yeah, we could be having protests over this, but I don't know. Unfortunately, it's always the working class that suffers from the globalist elite's stupidities, unfortunately. Not that the globalist elite really care. I imagine they don't really care too much. So the globalist elite, well, that's a good segue to my next topic, which is the European Parliament yesterday moving to revoke Hungary's voting rights. That's what's going on in the EU. They're very upset with Orbán in Hungary, and the Parliament yesterday they are making moves to revoke Hungary's voting rights because of Hungary's stance towards Project Ukraine and the blocking of 50 billion euros to Project Ukraine. So, if Hungary doesn't have any voting rights, then why should Hungary even stay in the European Union? That's my take on this one. If you remove Hungary's voting rights, why even stay part of this thing? They owe you money. They've stolen your money. They've stolen your voting rights. Time to exit. Let's see here. The MEPs demanded the EU Council explore the possibility of stripping Hungary of its EU voting rights in a clash with Budapest over the rule of law. In a vote Thursday at the European Parliament, the majority of MEPs backed a non-binding resolution calling on the other 26 EU countries' governments to use a sub-clause in the EU treaties to take action and to determine whether Hungary has committed serious and persistent breaches of EU values. Breaching of those EU values. Those EU values. Can we get a list, a document of those EU values, just so we can see what we're talking about? Does someone have a list, a book, a document of these EU values that Hungary has broken to warrant Hungary's removal from the voting process? What are these EU values that they go on and on about? Don't know. Don't know. I don't think anyone really knows, to be quite honest. I don't think anyone has any idea what these EU values are. That's a positive. I don't think anyone's actually put these things on paper. They're flexible. These are flexible values, They change. They change with the times. Oh, boy. So Newsweek, they put out an article the other day. I believe on the 17th, this article was published. And this is an interesting article from Newsweek. Very interesting article from Newsweek, because you actually got some honest analysis from the collective West. Newsweek's article has the title, "How Russia Won the Sanctions War with the West." It's an opinion piece, but it drops a lot of truth, this opinion piece, a lot of facts, and a lot of admissions with regards to Project Ukraine. Newsweek, basically in this article, Newsweek says that the collective West has lost the conflict in Ukraine. They've lost the sanctions war, and that Russia is now stronger than ever. And the article says, towards the bottom of the article, please don't steal the 300 billion in Russian frozen assets, because that would be a very dumb thing to do. The article actually uses the word dumb. It would be a very dumb thing for the collective West to do. In their rage, because they've lost the conflict to Russia, they're going to make a move on the 300 billion in frozen assets, and that would just be very dumb, according to this Newsweek article. Let me read you some of what this article has to say. Let's see. The opening paragraph says, "It is now abundantly clear that Russia has defeated the Western sanctions regime that was intended to cripple its economy and force its withdrawal from Ukraine. Instead of collapsing, the Russian economy is growing rapidly. Russia's GDP grew by an impressive 5.5% in the third quarter of 2023. Final figures for the year are not yet in, but Russian GDP growth for all the 2023 should exceed 3%. Ironically, the Russians are doing rather better than those who imposed sanctions on them." It's quite an admission from Newsweek, huh? Further on down, the article says, how did they do it? How did Russia win the economic sanctions war? Well, very simply, Newsweek says, the Russians have a lot of gold, grain, oil, and friends, all of which they used effectively to defeat the sanctions. Any realistic war game could have easily predicted all of this. Yes, very true. Any realistic analysis could have predicted all of this. But not Habeck, and not Annalena Baerbock, and not Blinken, and not Sullivan. They couldn't see any of this. They couldn't predict any of this. Oh, man. The article says, this was supposed to turn the ruble into rubble. It did not. Instead, the Russian central bank moved very quickly to peg the ruble to gold and backed this up with its massive gold reserves and production capacity. The peg was in force for barely 3 months, but this bought Russia time to reorient its energy trade away from Europe and adjust its overall economy to the sanctions. The article also says that NATO's wonder weapons like HIMARS and Leopard tanks failed to fuel an effective Ukraine counteroffensive. Diplomacy failed to isolate Russia, which is busy reviewing numerous applications to join it in the BRICS organization. Economic warfare has been a bust. This has led some to now consider the mother of all sanctions, Russia's central bank assets that have been frozen. So we saw this coming, right? We saw all of this coming. But the big brains in DC and Brussels, London, they didn't see any of this coming. They thought that they were going to bring down the Putin administration. It's an interesting admission from Newsweek. You're about 2 years late into the game, but, you know, truth now, I guess, is better than nothing. A little bit of truth now is better than the alternative. About the frozen assets. This is what Newsweek says about stealing the frozen assets. Regardless of its legality, that is a very dumb idea. Taking the assets of Russia's central bank would encourage just about everyone to find an alternative to the dollar as their reserve currency. That won't be easy, but if the alternative is losing all your money, if you annoy Washington, people will find a way. The article then goes on to say that doing this will unite Russians and will increase the support for Russian President Vladimir Putin and his government, and they're right. They're right on all of the points that they are making with regards to stealing the frozen assets, but will the Biden White House listen? No, I don't think they'll listen. I hope they listen. I hope they don't go stealing these frozen assets, but you know that Biden and Ursula, they want to be in Kiev in February, and they want to say, we have stolen. No, they're not going to say stolen. We have confiscated. Maybe Biden might say stolen. Who knows? He might mess up and say stolen. We have now confiscated Russia's frozen assets used to power their war machine, and we will be using it to help Ukraine and Kiev rebuild. That is what they want to say. And taking these assets will leave Russia's economy in tatters. That's what they want to say. That is what they want to say. They really want to give that speech. They really, really do. So that's Newsweek. That is Newsweek. Let's shift gears now and talk about, since we're talking about truth. Since we're talking about truth, let's talk about what Netanyahu said the other day. He just came out with it. He said the truth of everything that is going on in Gaza. Why this war? Why this war? Well, Netanyahu, he came out with the truth. As horrible as the truth is, I don't think what Netanyahu said is going to surprise anybody. It's shocking what he said, shocking and disturbing, because he just came out with it just like that, but not surprising. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that he informed the White House that he firmly opposes the establishment of a Palestinian state in any post-war scenario, after also saying that the operation to eliminate Hamas would continue all the way into 2025. In statements that run directly counter to what the U.S. has expressed, namely a desire for a two-state solution, Netanyahu said, accordingly to the widely circulated Hebrew translator's words, in any future arrangement, Israel needs security, control all territory west of the Jordan. This collides with the idea of sovereignty. What can you do? That is a direct quote. He also said Israel seeks a decisive victory over Hamas, and that war is not about the lack of a Palestinian state, but the existence of a Jewish one. Quote, every area that we evacuate, we receive terrible terror against us. It happened in South Lebanon, in Gaza, and also Judea and Samaria. And therefore, I clarify that in any other arrangement in the future, the state of Israel has to control the entire area from the river to the sea. That is a direct quote from Netanyahu. Another direct quote is this truth, I say to my American friends. Netanyahu emphasized that questions of Israeli sovereignty can't be imposed from the outside, even from the best of friends, in reference to Washington. So those are direct quotes from Netanyahu. This is not me saying this. This is what Netanyahu said in a statement he made yesterday. No analysis needed. No analysis needed. That's coming from Netanyahu. That is what the goals are for his administration in this war. There you have it. Let's do a couple of more stories before I get into my clown world. Washington has imposed sanctions on a UAE registered company because it was allegedly selling Russian oil above the price cap. Yeah. Let's see here. The Office of Foreign Assets Control has added the Abu Dhabi-based shipping company Hennessy Holdings Limited and its 17 Liberian flagged bulk carriers and oil tankers to a blacklist over alleged violations of the G7 EU price cap on Russian oil. Oh boy. The hypocrisy of it all. The hypocrisy of it all. They placed sanctions on this UAE company after just yesterday, or just 2 days ago, we found out that the Biden White House is importing Russian oil above the price cap, I believe at $74. He was importing Russian oil in October and November. And the UK media was reporting how the European Union is importing Russian oil refined in India above the price cap. But they're going to sanction a UAE company. Like a pre-clown world, I guess, this story. Let's get to a clown world now. So Blinken in Davos he was preparing to leave Davos, and his plane had some problems, something with the oxygen. There was some problem with the oxygen in the plane that he was going to use to get back to the United States. And all the journalists, they were going to travel with Blinken on this plane. But much like Trudeau, the plane had some technical difficulties. So that's not really the clown world of this story. The clown world of the story is that they got a new plane for Blinken, but the journalists that travel with the Secretary of State, well, they couldn't get a ride from this plane. It was a military plane or something like that, and they were not allowed to board this new plane. And so the State Department told all the journalists accompanying Blinken to arrange for their own way back to their home countries to fly commercial. Yep, that is what happened there. Blinken boarded a Boeing C-40, which is part of the U.S. military service, but that aircraft sustained a critical failure related to an oxygen leak. A new plane was arranged for Blinken. The press pool traveling with him was advised to make commercial flight arrangements because the new aircraft was unable to accommodate journalists. You guys need to find your own way back home. Book a flight on Delta or United. Make your own way back to the United States. That is what the Department of State told the journalists traveling with Blinken. And finally, we have this cover from Politico, Dream Team, how all the EU's top jobs could be held by women. It's possible that the senior roles at the European Commission, Council, Parliament, and Foreign Service could all be held by women after June's EU election. The Dream Team. I remember the Dream Team. Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, Scottie Pippen and Larry Bird. I remember the Dream Team. Karl Malone, Stockton. Well, the EU has their own Dream Team. And this Dream Team could consist of, let me find it here, the EU's Dream Team. Ursula von der Leyen staying on as Commission Chief. Malta's Roberta Metsola remaining in the post at Parliament. Mette Frederiksen, the current Prime Minister of Denmark, becoming President of the European Council. That's Charles Michel's job. And Kaja Kallas, the Estonian Prime Minister, taking over as High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. That is Jungle Joseph's job. That's the Dream Team, everybody. And an EU diplomat who wanted to remain anonymous said to Politico, "It's my Dream Team. It would send such a strong message." There you go. Let's not look for the most capable people, the most qualified people for these positions. Let's not vote these positions. We can't have any democracy. We have to appoint these positions, but let's not look for the most competent and capable and qualified. Let's make the dream happen and send a strong message. What that message is, I don't know. But for content creators like myself, this is good news. More of Ursula. Instead of Borrell, I have got Kaja Kallas. That'll be interesting. Borrell provided me with a lot of Clown World material. A whole lot of Clown World material. But Kaja Kallas, she's got potential. She's got a lot of Clown World potential. So we'll see. Anyway, that is the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. and go to the Duran shop. 15% off all t-shirts. Take care.